Hi everyone. Welcome to our new meetup. My name is Oleksii. I'm AWS ambassador, community builder, and leader of AWS user group Kyiv. Today we have special guest Vadym, and we will be talking about serverless. But first of all, let me introduce myself as organizer and our company Automated as general sponsor. And after that, Vadym will present his material. So a little bit about us. We are Automated. We are providing DevOps services. Company initially started in Israel, and now we are located in 8 countries. We have more than 500 successful launches for different customers, startups, enterprises, etc. We are a premier partner of AWS, and we work mostly with AWS. We have several competencies like DevOps, security, migration, and we have more than 300 certified engineers in our company. And what we actually do, first of all, it's DevOps. It's building cloud infrastructures, automated things, DevOps processes, CI/CD. We also provide full set of FinOps services. We conduct well-architected review for our customers. We also have machine learning, MLOps team, and 24/7 support that actually makes the life of our customers much easier. And all of these teams are actively growing. So we are hiring currently in 6 countries. So if you want to join us, please follow this QR code. And if you want to be a speaker to such events, please contact me and we will organize something interesting together. So welcome, Vadym. Please proceed.
Yeah, so now I can share. Okay, first start my personal sharing. So now I can share in Zoom. So now I think you are able to see my full screen, and I will prepare laser pointer. So yeah, I think I'm ready to go. So yeah, thanks once again Oleksii, for inviting me. I will be talking about Amazon DevOps Guru for AWS serverless applications. It's special to share the knowledge with Ukrainian community, and I just briefly looked into the attendees' names, and of course I recognize lots of them coming from Ukraine or have the Ukrainian names and surnames. And yeah, I also was born in Ukraine, in Kyiv, and basically I studied there. I grew up, just finished KPI in Kyiv, so Polytechnical Institute, and then I moved to Germany in 2000. So I just lived here more than half of my life. But yeah, very attached to the country and all things happening. I have my niece here from Kyiv for more than 1 year, as what happened 2 years ago. So kind of helping where I can. So I am I like to share my knowledge, but it's special kind of sharing it with AWS community from Ukraine. So I have two passions. One is Java, and today it's not about Java exceptionally, but because I talk a lot about Java, serverless, and all that stuff. That's why I'm a co-organizer of Java user group Bonn, where I currently live. I live near Bonn and work there, and I'm also AWS community builder from the beginning of this kind of initiative in the fall of 2020, I think, so in the 5th year currently. So you can reach out to me basically through various channels. I'm quite active in blogging a lot, nearly weekly, about different topics, also about this topic that I will be now talking. So that's basically it. Short introduction. Let's move forward. Just background, a lot of AWS, serverless, Java I already mentioned. Yeah, Oleksii already presented such a DevOps circle. So just to give some context, what we'll be talking about, where this DevOps guru service resides, and in this whole life cycle of DevOps, it's basically on the operate monitor level, so kind of in the end of this chain, but it's very important chain because kind of the health of the application, SLA, and all that stuff is heavily contributing to the revenue share of the company. So basically, DevOps guru. Let's talk about some abbreviations. AI ops, it's kind of everything ops today, but there is ML ops, AI ops. So what's AI ops? It's basically the process of using machine learning techniques to solve operational problems, but without human intervention, or at least with reducing it heavily. And yeah, there are techniques behind the scenes, machine learning, all that stuff. You don't need to be machine learning expert, to be honest. I'm also not one of these, but the service is accessible for normal people like me. And then DevOps Guru is basically Amazon offering of fully managed AI platform powered by machine learning, and just simply designed to make it easy to improve operational performance and availability. And yeah, they have the DevOps Guru is able of detecting behaviors that deviate from normal operating patterns, so that we can identify issues maybe even long before they impact our customers. And there are lots of categories, normal stuff like error rates, resource constraints, latency, increased latency especially. So what are the benefits of DevOps Guru? So basically, it's automatically detecting operational issues. We'll be seeing that's more or less activating it, and it's ready to go. Not too much that you can configure and misconfigure, and this it scales easily. I will explain what I mean by this. But especially it reduces noise and alarm fatigue. Probably everybody had the situation in life, like the false alarms, and then you simply switch off, and then you miss the important ones. At least it is the goal to reduce that stuff, so that more or less we're shifting that responsibility to AWS, and then know when it's really alarm or it's some very temporary problem that you probably don't need to be notified, at least in the on-call duty in the night or something like this. It doesn't solve problems for you. That's not the goal of these tools. That still should be you solving them, but it helps kind of with that. So how does it work? The service itself is not a magic. So basically, we will be looking how you can activate it for your application. It will be serverless application, because I only have experience using it with serverless stack, so cannot speak about containers, Kubernetes, and classical infrastructure. Basically, you will select the coverage, based on CloudFormation templates or text. We'll be looking into this. And then there are different data sources that DevOps Guru analyzes. So obviously you will have CloudWatch, and others are basically optional. And of course they cost money, but if you use them, like especially CloudTrail is really, really useful just to call API, just to log API calls. But also if you have config, then you can AWS config enable, then you have also kind of timeline of what has changed, and you can kind of also use that just to analyze X-ray if you're using it, just in my opinion, not a very strong service. But basically, Amazon DevOps Guru uses all that services, builds some kind of baseline of what is working. Yeah, and they have their own knowledge database, what's working, because especially in the serverless space, they are managing a lot of services. So they like DynamoDB, API gateway, they have built it on such a scale. So they know they can easily recognize behind the scenes if something not working currently or is about to be that case. Yeah, they analyze the stuff and then they create so-called insights. And DevOps Guru, and then the job of that service is basically over. And there are integrations because the DevOps Guru will not be calling you. Yeah, it's not the professional incident management service. There are others. Yeah, AWS has own AWS System Manager offering in the Ops Center, but you can simply do something with SNS, but you can use third parties like PagerDuty. If we will have time, I will be showing you examples because that's what we use, but you can use also Ops Genie from Atlassian. And basically this service, you can, basically create your on-call duty teams, assign it to the services, and they will get the calls. Yeah, this is the services are kind of integrated. How it worked behind the scenes, not too much information, but basically what AWS shares that they have built over time domain-specific single-purpose models to identify known failure models. Yeah, they call it detectors, and they sometimes work kind of as ensemble. So they work together just to figure out what's not working. And they are pre-configured, and there are lots of detectors like for error rates, availability, latency, CPU, memory, disk, all that stuff is implemented behind the scenes. And basically, this is one of the detectors for EBS volume. They can detect kind of an approximate if you will be out of space, and simply for you. So you can do, of course, the same with CloudWatch metrics, but the goal is that you kind of not dealing too much with alarms and all that stuff, and they will be doing that for you as one of the example, and they can approximate if the trend continues, when you will be just, then you will have degradation starting with 80-90% with the coverage of EBS volume. Of course, there should be seasonality. We are also at our company heavily in the peak season business, like Christmas, where we receive, we have the most traffic, and having more traffic doesn't mean DDoS attacks. So they need to understand the seasonality and just not to have false metrics. In this case, it can be also weekend business or evening business. We have also the same. We are basically offering our service, and we are like photo product service, like calendars, photo books. So everywhere where you can put the photos and design the products, like teddy bear with photos. Yeah, we are basically in Europe, and not too much traffic even in the night, but especially after working hours or on Sunday, there is one. So this service learns also, and they understand if it's normal, natural traffic, campaign, all that stuff, and just doesn't bother you with that. So let's maybe introduce our simple application. Yeah, it's really, I took something that I have at work with 200 Lambda function and reduced it basically to only 4. I will explain the reasons. We have some kind of that application to create photo products. We have API gateway in front for just receiving the public traffic. And we create products, we store them in NoSQL DynamoDB, and we have, for simplicity, only several Lambda functions: create product, delete product, get products, get product by ID. So just reduced to the stuff. So that we'll be using for different incidents. And what's maybe the purpose of all of that? I personally don't believe we will be reaching that, and we are currently kilometers away from that. In even AI tools, who knows how it will develop? But this was the quote from Vernon Fogel, CTO of AWS, who said in one of the reInvents 2 or 3 years ago, all the code you ever write is the business logic. Once again, I don't think it will be the case, but basically, of course, we should strive to invest in something really adding value. And this is, of course, then the business logic, something core to your personal business. But yeah, we have serverless applications. We are heavily in the serverless applications, having lots of Lambdas. As we have different applications, yeah, 3-digit number of Lambda functions, API gateway, lots of stuff. But this is how, if we need to define alarms. Maybe it's not visible, but we have lots of such a code in, this is AWS SAM, but it just doesn't matter. We are dealing with a lot of this stuff. And this is the screenshot that I made from only one of our applications. And you see we have alone 38 alarms defined, all that stuff here, 500 error codes, 400 error codes, latencies, timeouts, all that stuff. And it was the snapshot from that time. I'm quite sure we have now more. So each time we introduce a new Lambda function, we need to think just to add there something, or if we group two Lambda functions together, maybe some assumptions are not correct. So we're heavily dealing with all this alarm or alerting stuff with AWS, how to define them properly. And it's kind of maintenance, yeah, stuff, and it's not the business logic, but it's important stuff. So of course, the goal of DevOps Guru is just you don't need to do all of this, and DevOps Guru will recognize it for you. Yeah, but what it involves, of course, trust, because it's important part. And if you simply say, yeah, they will be doing that for me, it's fine, I just delete all my alarms, and DevOps Guru will identify everything. It's of course, yeah, that you need to have a trust that the tool delivers the level, or even does it better than you, if you will be defining them, the alarms, by yourself. So we'll be checking. I will present you very different parts of DevOps Guru. So I am not selling you anything here. So we will be very different impressions after now nearly 2 years. But basically, first of all, let's set it up. Yeah. So you have here, if you go to the DevOps Guru AWS service, basically, first of all, you need to set to just once again, just need to select your coverage. So selecting none doesn't make any sense. So basically, you can select all account resources. Yeah, and we will be talking, AWS doesn't support everything. DevOps Guru doesn't support all the resources, but many of them. That might be expensive option. So you will be somehow dealing with select the stack. And this is this demo application that I showed you with for Lambda functions. Yeah, and for each application, you will have CloudFormation stack deployed usually. Yeah, so you may have more here, but this is my private account. I only deployed this one. Yeah, or you can select text. So simply say, yeah, I don't want to analyze the whole application. It's too expensive. I will take the resources that I would like to analyze with DevOps Guru equals to true, and then you can simply select this stack, and only these resources will be analyzed. And it's up to you what's your impression. And of course, it's possible that was easy to scale and maintain. The normal situation, you have some AWS organization account, and you have bunch of sub accounts. Maybe you are grouping them like staging, live, and all that stuff. So basically, you can, in the AWS organization, select the pattern, what accounts needs to be analyzed, like all live accounts, and then if the accounts will be added or somewhere in the future, they will be automatically analyzed by DevOps Guru. So just to show you, we will be reproducing a lot of incidents, but I will be talking later. This is how the dashboard is looking. Basically, if you have some incidents, you see here impacted application, ongoing insights. We will be talking about this, how many resources are analyzed. You have here statistics about mean time to recovery. So what after they have been fixed, these insights will be closed automatically if the remediation happened. So you have here some very basic statistics. And of course, you can go and just check your coverage. Basically, you can check if what you selected matches. So the DevOps Guru shows you what exactly APIs, DynamoDB table here, Kinesis, Lambda function. So you then can check that everything is analyzed what you intended to analyze. Yeah, we will be talking here, this console, I have here a lots of insights that I reproduced. But basically what we'll be doing now, I'm not allowed to show you our application and our kind of DevOps Guru Insights console. It's kind of internal, and we don't have too much insights. or too much problems. We are quite experienced. But anyway, before we started to use DevOps Guru, and even after this, I am trying to reproduce some incidents on my own. Yeah, so we needed to understand, will DevOps Guru recognize them? So we simply kind of set up the application on staging and simply artificially created alarms. Yeah, and just wanted to check out whether DevOps Guru will recognize them. This is what I will be showing you. The examples will be artificial a bit because I mean, I cannot set up the DynamoDB with a lot of RCUs and VCUs. Kind of, it's for the cost saving perspective, I kind of sometimes reduce the capacity of the service so that I can easily DDoS that service. But the same what I will be showing you can happen with much bigger numbers if you will kind of exceed them. So the logic is the same, but the examples may be, oh, it's not the big scale. Yeah, it's intentionally because that's my private account. There are costs involved that I need to pay. So that's why I just don't want just to scale Lambda function to 1,000 concurrent executions and throttle it. I can just simply shrink and check if it will be working. So this is exactly what we will be doing with that kind of application. And I will be also showing other services, SQS, Kinesis, even Aurora, and say some words. So many of you won't be having everything, but it was kind of became my passion just to think out of serverless scenarios, initiate incidents by what I hear, so reducing the service quota or something like this, adding artificial latency, and then check whether DevOps Guru will recognize that just for the trust purposes. And I will be showing you good parts. I will be also showing you the parts that don't work as I expect. For some parts, there is explanation. I'm also working together with DevOps Guru AWS team. So I shared my insights. I publicly blog about what's working and what's not working. So this is, they can improve the service if they would like. And there are things that can be improved. I use here, okay, I just cannot switch now. Oh, yeah. I am doing a lot of stress tests, and you can use whatever you want. I use Hey tool. It's very near to the curl. So I simply just putting a lot of load with that tool, but you can use whatever you want. Yeah, we will see if DevOps Guru recognizes it. I will be stopping incidents and then see that this remediation. Yeah, so DevOps Guru recognizes the incident is closed because no deviation. So that's basically it. I think we can now start just doing the stuff I will show you in the first incidents, very, very detailed what information DevOps Guru will be giving you, and for subsequent incidents, I will only show you only important metrics and comment them whether it's right or not. So basically, DynamoDB, we use it heavily. We wanted just to check. We use it in different flavors, but we also not always using dynamic capacity. If you know what it is, just for automatic stuff, sometimes we are better in controlling our read and write capacity units because it's cheaper for us than having this on demand. And even with on-demand capacity units, you now can set the threshold that it doesn't scale forever. Yeah, just that you somewhere can be also throttled. But basically, the first incident, we have some table and let's say read capacity unit is 1. Yeah, I had some various, I just would like to throttle. So this kind of table is really easy to throttle, and I just start this stress test. Yeah, you see, hey, this is my API gateway where I deployed it. I secured it with key, but it just doesn't matter. So hey works with Q, its number of containers, and with Q is number of requests per second, C is per container, C is number of containers in parallel. So I have here for 400 requests per second for 15 minutes of duration. So very easy just to throttle this poor DynamoDB table, but you need to know that DynamoDB has something like burst capacity. So the first 5 minutes, maybe the capacity accumulated will be burned, and after that, it will be throttled, basically. Yeah? So after 5 or 7 minutes latest, you will have DynamoDB throttling situation. So the question is, will DevOps Guru recognize something like this? And it will be doing this exercise for things. Yeah, it does it. Yeah, you see here the interesting part that it starts with some kind of message, DynamoDB throttle request anomalous, and I like it more because it's the correct one. But then the name changed to anomalous increase in Lambda invocations. which is also kind of correct, but not the reason for incidents. But of course, with the load test, I increased number of Lambda invocations drastically from 1 per second to 400, something like this. But basically, the name is maybe not very important. You see here severity high. DynamoDB table was throttled. So very important information. You have here some kind of when it started, when it ended. So it's a screenshot taken after the incident is basically closed. But the interesting stuff are metrics. So with DevOps Guru, first, well, you will maybe checking aggregated metrics, and they are showing you all the metrics that are deviating with that kind of test that I'm doing with load test. I personally, first of all, this is no grouping is sometimes not very cool, and I select basically group by service. And with that, it's with the people having experience, it's enough to see what's happening. So of course the counts are higher because that's the load test, but it's not the reason for error. You need to look bit down to look what and how it started. But basically, if you see DynamoDB with products table, they give you the name of the table, you see the metrics deviating. So read throttle event sum. Yeah, it was get product by ID, Lambda function, which I nearly always use for throttling. So they say read events throttled on DynamoDB, which is true. And you see it began kind of quickly. They also have metrics throttled request sum. Yeah, if you have reads and writes together and I'm both throttled, you can maybe see something, but I'm only doing reads. So basically, if you just sort it out and you see, okay, yeah, this the initiation of the error or the problem is with the read throttle events here on DynamoDB, and you know the table. Of course, it's only line. Sometimes you would like to know how many events are really throttled, and for that you have where it was here, you have aggregated metrics, you have graphed anomalies, and these graph anomalies give you for all that metrics real numbers. Yeah, so you see how many events have been throttled. Yeah, once again, I just stopped the incident after several minutes, so that it was kind of then resolved, but it gives you just all the needed information. You see, this is pure CloudWatch logs that are aggregated here. So with that, with certain experience, you can basically sort and find things out. Sometimes it's interesting to see more. And basically, if you enable that stuff, you can jump out into the Lambda logs directly, calling this DynamoDB exactly into the logs that produce the error. Helpful or not, it's another stuff. In that case of throttling DynamoDB, maybe it's not helpful. You will see DynamoDB error or something like this. I like this relevant events view. It gives you the view, so what has changed recently, because the change doesn't come automatically. Of course, it can be DDoS, and it is the reason. So there was no change in infrastructure. It's simply the scaling issue and configuration issue. Now you reach some state that it didn't work. But in my case, I changed the basically cloud formation configuration. And here you can see all the deployments and infrastructural changes with the points. So it's worth looking into last one, and you can select. And if you kind of select that one, you can jump into that. And what you will be seeing in case you enable Cloud Trail is this Cloud Trail event. Yeah. So they recognized update DynamoDB table. Yeah, I just changed the right read capacity unit. And you can see the current state of this event. It's just pure JSON. Yeah? And of course, it then requires a bit of experience that you'll be looking, okay, read capacity unit is 1, it's maybe wrong. If you have kind of this understanding from the last state, it's fine. But in case you enabled additional AWS config and cost money for sure, then you will have this button additionally. Yeah, so you can go into AWS config, and AWS config gives you the diff between the states. Yeah, now you see here from to 2, and then the read capacity units was 5, and now it's 1. So basically, you can see the change here without maybe doing diff in countless repositories where you have infrastructure as code or something like this. So at least on the infrastructure as code level, you see this. Of course, for deployment itself, if you deploy a bunch of code, they can, of course, show you the resources that have been changed. But basically, with Cloud Trail, with CloudWatch, Cloud Trail, and Cloud AWS config, you can kind of many situations figure out what was the reason for the error, if it's in that kind of stuff. AWS DevOps Guru gives you some kind of recommendations. I personally don't find them useful. They for all this deviation of metrics, they give you some resources to read. It's okay for the maybe not very experienced people, but we are dealing with that kind of errors in the on-call duty, and we have people who may need to fix problems within minutes. They don't have time to read this. They need to know this. Yeah, so basically, I don't look into this, but I look into the metrics that I showed you before, and I can paint the picture basically of what's happening. So I had this can reproduce all that incidents with DynamoDB, with the read and write capacity units, also with auto scaling and all that stuff. It works absolutely similar. And here there are other limits of DynamoDB that you can reach. And yeah, this is the auto read and write auto scaling. You can adjust that, and if you reach the maximum, DevOps Guru will recognize it. The same is once again with dynamic capacity. If you set the max value, will be the same. You will be throttled, but you can also be throttled also with dynamic capacity in case, because it also doesn't grow. How should I say? Yeah, without bound. So you can only double in on-demand modus each 30 minutes. If you need more, you will be also throttled, and then DevOps Guru will recognize that as well. So artificial examples, of course, but you can have 100 read capacity units and reach 101. That's the same logic. Important that will be recognized. So now let's move to the stack. So what can go wrong with API gateway stuff that we tested? Actually, many things. So everything here configured, like how many you can configure how the quotas or rates or bursts, yeah, and all that stuff can be reached by default 10,000 requests per second for all API gateways in the region. I allow 10,000. You can increase it, but basically lots of quotas that can be reached. The easiest one for testing, if something like this will be recognized, is just to set the daily quota quite low. Yeah, it's the easiest test. It's what I'm exactly doing, and say only API gateway can process 500 requests. This exactly API gateway, and then I'm doing the test with 100 requests per second, and after several seconds, I will be throttled with API gateway. Just to find out what will happen. This is the first one. This should give the throttling on API gateway gives HTTP 429 too many errors, and but there are other things. For example, 404 not found. I'm just asking API gateway for product that doesn't exist. For example, I don't have product with ID 200, and the same logic here. Yeah, I can. If I do this test a very long time or a bit, then I have lots of problems here, kind of lots of 404s, and it was important for me just to find out whether it will be recognized. So for both incidents, 429, 404, that was recognized. So you see here API gateway was throttled and the request didn't reach Lambda function. The same kind of, you see this for XX error I will be talking. So this is, I personally would like to have 404 or 429 error, just because they are different. One is application, one is infrastructural, but this is the limitation of CloudWatch itself. This cardinality, they cannot give you more here. Yeah, but basically this is also, both incidents I recognize. We'll be also watching 500 errors later with Lambda, but basically all that stuff that I had with API gateway was okay. Now we'll be moving now to Lambda. Yeah, so what can go wrong with Lambda? You run out of concurrency. Yeah, you have your account values, but they are quite high and it may involve costs. Simply tested by using reserve concurrency value, which is low. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, and just doing test here. 25 requests per second, so that the concurrency is not enough. In this case, the same AWS is really, really cool. DevOps Guru is cool, recognizing that you see throttle sum for this Lambda function correctly recognized. And in that case, automatically API gateway will receive 500 error. So you receive here both metrics. And if you look into this, you directly understand what's going on. Lambda is throttled. This is by far the most frequent error that I saw in serverless applications, that the level of scaling doesn't match the account configuration. And you need either to adjust, maybe use event-driven stuff with that. But this is, I used a lot of Lambda tests just to figure out, for example, here I just configured timeout 30 seconds and I added sleep time to my Lambda function 31 seconds. So I always got timeout for Lambda function. Yeah, it was recognized. You see here also 500 error, but also Lambda error was error sum for Lambda function. So all that stuff that might happen, so that your Lambda function has timeout, but some downstream resources so small, so slow, like database, that you in the end cannot process with Lambda function and run out timeout. Yeah, once again, the test was simply adding sleep to the function and also kind of recognized. So this one is a bit tricky, and this is where the easy configuration might be not a good solution, or at least DevOps Guru doesn't know what's the right latency for your business case. Yeah, maybe you are happy with 100 milliseconds, maybe also happy with 10 seconds. So basically this Lambda function needs several milliseconds. I simply tested if I increase latency of the function by adding sleep time in the function with different values, 1 second, 2 seconds, when it starts to recognize increased latency. And my test showed me, for example, 10 and 20 seconds were not enough sleep time. So it sleeps for 20 seconds and does the job for 1 second, no error, and increased latency is no error. Yeah, but starting with 25 seconds additional latency, DevOps Guru could recognize that. They're giving you the metrics duration P50. In this case, it can be P90, it just doesn't matter. This is the sign of increased latency. Personally, very difficult to assess, because should you be notified in this case of if you have 10 seconds latency or not? It's up to you, but this is what I observed. It takes also 30 minutes at least for this kind of latency to be recognized. Yeah, so it's not in several minutes. They try to avoid false alarm in case there are no errors. It takes time, so latency is a bit sensitive topic here. So let's do some more tests involving different stuff, like we have Lambda and queue that is polling. Yeah, Lambda putting something to the queue, and there is Lambda function polling from the queue. So what I did here was, yeah, the Lambda function which polled from the queue always ran into the error, and the message remained in the queue. Yeah, and that's forever. I just built intentionally error into the Lambda function and no chance to proceed the message. And it can happen if you change something in the message structure and the Lambda isn't able to simply process this message, like cannot parse it anymore because the structure has changed. So what you will be having here in the reality, your message will remain in SQS and there will be asynchronous retries. According to your policy, this message in flight will remain until the message will be deleted. I just simply wanted to look to see if that was recognized. It was recognized, and I saw different kinds of errors. First of all, yeah, the error in the Lambda function, which I intentionally produced, but also got 2 additional SQS metrics, very strange names that come from this CloudWatch stuff, approximate number of messages not visible. I don't know how they come to these names, but if you look into basically what they mean exactly the message remain in flight state. Like there is a poller, but the poller is not capable of reading the message. So in that case, you have the whole picture. There is Lambda, which cannot process the message in the queue. Yeah, this is how you can interpret what DevOps Guru gave you for this kind of incident. And this is correct. Now it's better even to skip it, but I just went one step further. We're using heavily SNS and talking to APIs outside, and I wanted to check out what will happen if the endpoint, which SNS should send the message, will kind of disappear. Yeah, so I just had that, it worked, and then I changed the domain and forgot it. Yeah, in that case, SNS cannot deliver the message because the API, so the endpoint is not there, and it will receive 500, and it's an error. And I see in CloudWatch it's an error but the problem was that this kind of stuff could not be normally recognized. So this kind of error DevOps Guru did not recognize. Only what helped here, I started another incident with 400 API gateway shortly after this, and only then the metrics was shown to me. You see number of not send messages of SNS, only then it has been shown to me. Only then another incident started, but without another incident, this kind of very rare case, to be honest, it's not happening because who is moving DNS name or just changing it. Just you change an endpoint, IP maybe, but not DNS. But this was one of the things that will be see more. The DevOps Guru couldn't help me that easily. Maybe because it's only one metric and they simply look for some other metrics because this detectors works in ensemble and they could not find it and they didn't produce insight, and then another metric appeared, then they showed to me. Okay, so there are other things that work similarly, like SQS. You can have such kind of pattern with Kinesis data stream and Lambda, and I also intentionally produce error in Lambda just to see what I will get. And I also get here error in Lambda, but also here are the number of records in Kinesis and all that stuff that indicated that Lambda has an error, and also the record remained in Kinesis. There's also asynchronous retry there. So that's the correct thing, in my opinion. So I will jump over shortly. The same, I also tested step functions calling Lambda functions and Lambda function running to the error, and then I have retry based on that. In the state machine, also the same stuff, correctly recognized error sum in Lambda, and also execution aborted, execution failed sum. And you see here the state machine name. Yeah, so you see here that's not Lambda. You have the information. It's not simply Lambda function, but also the whole state machine is aborted, and maybe other steps are not executed for this case. So that's the correct way of working. So how DevOps Guru helped me in this case. Now we'll be coming to a more interesting part. I don't know if you are using serverless. It's not only DynamoDB. Many people are heavily attached to relational databases, and there are solutions how you can deal with this. One of this is Aurora service of AWS, and it has serverless option. You can use both serverless, not serverless, but basically DevOps Guru works also with Aurora, but for this you need to activate DevOps performance insights. Yeah, because they are looking for additional metrics. The service is for 7 days, even for free. So there is no reason not to do it, and it gives really cool graphs. How many you can just sort for SQL statements just to see the numbers, or how much CPU does they cost on AWS. So it's really cool. But basically, what I wanted also to see if I can throttle Aurora, and you probably know the number of connection in Aurora or RDS database is depending on the size of the machine. Yeah, in RDS case, it's kind of if you're using M5 large or X large. Yeah, it's just depends on the size. In case of Aurora, there are Aurora's ICUs. Simple to vCPUs, some other metrics, but basically the bigger the database, the more connections you have. And if it's small, maybe you can have 100 connections to this database, and you can scale with 100 function talking to this database and exhaust the complete connection pool. There are solutions for that, like RDS proxy. I first didn't test it, and I simply exhausted the Aurora database. Serverless or not serverless, it doesn't matter in this case, just to check out what I will get, and that's okay. What's the correct one? So you see the load, average, number of connections, sum. So DevOps Guru was able to help me. Here in the case, I'm just throttling Aurora or Aurora serverless. And that works the same also with RDS proxy. Yeah, this is kind of service that helps you, but it's difficult to exhaust the connection if you're using RDS proxy, to be honest. But there is one more thing, and then it became interesting. Not everybody knows you can talk to Aurora serverless via HTTP, not using the drivers. If you're using Java, you will use Postgres driver and all that stuff. You can talk Serverless v2, the last version, provides data API, which allows you to talk to this database via HTTP. And you don't need them to manage all the connections. Yeah, you use the AWS CLI and then you RDS CLI, and then just talking the same way basically as to DynamoDB. DynamoDB is also a HTTP-based service. I wanted to do the same test, throttling the database. The problem was I received the metrics and I received the alarm, but I only see error sum on Lambda talking to this Aurora Serverless via data API, and I did not get any connection exhausted. Like you saw the DB average, DB connection sum in the previous example, I did not see them. And it was for me the reason to dig deeper what's happening there. And I just compared the graphs for using data API, these red ones, and not using data APIs. And in both cases, I'm throttling the database. So I saw here CPU utilization, you saw in both cases. So basically what I saw, the reason why I didn't receive any alarms is that for using data API, CloudWatch metrics for database connections is 0. Yeah? And for not data API, you see how many connections are there. So because I'm using data API, I'm not managing the connections. CloudWatch doesn't provide me the connection metrics. But there are, of course, connections on the database side consumed, but this is managed by AWS. I'm not managing connections anymore. For me, it's an error. They should, because I'm throttling DynamoDB, Aurora Serverless, sorry, it's not responding to me. So the connections are not there anymore, and CPU is a big, but data API is not possible to, using data API, CloudWatch doesn't expose database connection metrics. Yeah, this is one of the situations. I think it's not DevOps Guru, it's CloudWatch. You see this, the CloudWatch metrics, but this is what I'm talking with I will be blogging about this and so on. What's also interesting is using data API, using the same stress test, you see quite small load only possible. Yeah, so somehow there is a protection that doesn't allow. Somehow it was differently. Yeah, so without normal connection management, if I create the load test, and you see quite significant load here, but with data API, I can throttle the database, but the load values are kind of very small. Very interesting situation, but maybe you're not using data API. It was kind of my private interest. I was yesterday in the office hours for serverless with AWS with Julian Wood. It was recorded. You can find serverless hours and my surname from yesterday, where I talked about serverless v2 and data API. It's kind of simply my area of research. And if I research something, then I also test if it works with DevOps Guru and all that stuff. And so that's why I just saw here, but it's probably CloudWatch related, not the DevOps Guru. Yeah, that's basically it. And what I showed you until now, it has been reactive insights, so the dynamic insights of your application. So you are doing something and then you reach some abnormal state. What DevOps Guru also giving you additionally is our proactive insights. And these are basically the deviation in the configuration or some kind of misconfiguration that can be detected directly after deployment or with some time. Yeah. I will show you several examples. Many are trivial. For example, you over-provision your DynamoDB table, and with the reactive insight, several days later, you can receive something. So why you provision so many read capacity units or write capacity units? You don't need them. We are seeing the pattern. You are using only 50%, so go down or use on-demand capacity. Yeah, they're giving you some statistics, so kind of you can save money if you say, yeah, you are right. For DynamoDB table, not intentionally, but for my test, I forgot to enable this as the checkpoint, point-in-time recovery. It's kind of mandatory if you would like to back up and then go back in point in time in case something happened. Yeah, they also giving you the recommendation you need to enable point-in-time recovery, and I think it's valuable. This was funny. What they gave me, Lambda timeout exceeds recommended SQS visibility. This was that example that Lambda pulled from SQS, and I managed to configure Lambda timeout of 30 5 seconds, but SQS timeout, that is Lambda, is just falling for 30 seconds. And this is not the right configuration, because it might happen that you will, in this Lambda function, ask, deliver me the message from SQS in the last 5 seconds of execution, and then the message is not visible anymore. Yeah, interestingly enough, if you're using CloudFormation or SAM, you cannot configure this. This error will be detected during, if you apply the infrastructure as a code, but you can do such configuration via the AWS console itself. They are not checking it. And I misconfigured it unintentionally, to be honest, and DevOps Guru told me, hey, that's not right. You might run into the problem, so look into this. There are a bunch of other things that they are noticing you in case of SQS. If you don't have that later queue, which is a good pattern, if you retry it and then it's still an error you would like to put into the queue and then later look into this and reprocess. So they are giving you the name and say, just do it. The same stuff is for DynamoDB Kinesis stream. In that case, it's more failure destination. Yeah, on failure, what you can do. The same stuff I just forgot. And the same might happen as, yeah, you can use SQS, that later queue is, they're calling it failure destination for their services. I think they are completely right. Other stuff is maybe, yeah, you can enable enhanced stream metrics for Kinesis. Good hint, it costs additional money. I personally don't need it, but it gives you more metrics, the same as with S3. You can enable more metrics. That was also fun. I used concurrency, provision concurrency just for some action, because I needed to the specific time to have Lambda functions with certain, but I had more requests that I pre-provisioned, and then told me, hey, it will be maybe better with that pattern that you provision more here from 5, had 5 concurrency Lambda function running always there. Said me you will save money if you will have 8. It's okay, I think. Yeah, that was another story. I just connected Lambda to database Postgres, I think, and I only used 2 subnets, but my AWS region supports 3. It's here in Frankfurt, and they say, hey, you need to use all subnets. So this is kind of what Proactive is giving you. So there was one thing that they didn't give me that I expected. They told me I over-provisioned DynamoDB, but I then tested what will help if I have provision concurrency on Lambda and then stop using it for 5 days. So I have 5 Lambda sitting there, not having any requests. So I'm basically spending money for nothing. There was no, as I tested, there was no proactive insight that I should remove this concurrency. But I cannot accuse AWS. They are helping me with DynamoDB case. Maybe simply I didn't implement this detector. So there are these 2 parts. We're now approaching a bit of end. So yeah, you can, of course, DevOps Guru doesn't call you. You need professional tool for this. Once again, Ops Center can help you, PagerDuty or Atlassian and Ops Genie. In the settings, you can configure SNS, basically, or many or several SNS topics where you can just push this message. And we are using heavily PagerDuty, and PagerDuty has Amazon DevOps Guru integration. So you go to the PagerDuty, go to the DevOps Guru integration, and with that, they will generate your integration URL. Copy it, and if you use SNS subscription, for DevOps Guru, you simply configure this as an endpoint, HTTPS endpoint, and copy exactly that string there, and then everything will be streamed also to PagerDuty, where you can do a bit more. You will see the same stuff basically that you see in DevOps Guru also in PagerDuty, but they cannot differentiate between proactive and reactive insights. They are kind of, yeah, a bit. I don't like this view, but it's okay for basically. Then I can then define the on-call duty policies and all that stuff. Of course, there is pricing involved, and pricing is heavily involved here. So there are charges for API calls if you are just browsing the history of DevOps Guru, but basically you see 40 cents for 10K invocations, and basically ignore it because not possible to exhaust it. But the price for analyzing the services needs to be considered. Not very cheap, to be honest. And the DevOps Guru divides the services that it observes in two categories, A and B. Yeah? And they price it for our resource. Yeah. So for example, you see the price group A, it only consists of S3 bucket and Lambda function. So this is the price per hour, which corresponds to $2 per month. Yeah, if you just multiply for each resource. So each Lambda observed by DevOps Guru costs you that amount in month. And the same is S3 bucket. Yeah. Other services, and you see there in category B, much more services. When you see here, basically all other SNS, SQS, step functions, DynamoDB API gateway, they are priced differently, so 50% more. So one DynamoDB table will cost you $3. So, and API gateway, it's priced per path per route. So basically each API gateway is priced differently, and they also look how many get and post methods you have. So maybe my comment for this. I personally don't use DevOps Guru for monitoring my S3 buckets. It's too expensive for me. We have a lot of them, and it's simply just in our use case not feasible. We're using for Lambda only for critical Lambdas because it might be expensive. If you have 550, you will pay 100 euros. DynamoDB is that cheap. We have only several 5-6 tables, and then paying $18 per month to monitor them. It's cheap in my opinion. The same as SQS, SNS, API gateway also. So this is basically, these are the, yeah, you will be maybe paying $100 maximal per month for big, very, very big application. That's okay. Here for S3 and Lambda, you need to pay attention. So once again, we don't use it for S3, and we don't use it for uncritical Lambda functions, yeah, because we need to look into the cost and value stuff. But basically, there are things, yeah, you don't have so many SNS and SQS queues. This brings to another topic. It's the service is not very good usable on the staging. Yeah, if you will activate DevOps Guru continuously, you will pay for DevOps Guru the same amount for live and staging. And it doesn't make any sense for me, basically. I don't have any traffic on staging, but DevOps Guru calculates that per resource that they analyze. It doesn't matter if the Lambda is called or not. So this is kind of, you can use it for doing some last test and then deactivate DevOps Guru. You can deactivate and activate it 20 times a day. That's fine for the test. That's what I'm doing here. DevOps Guru gives you the cost estimator, so you can simply select your CloudFormation template and they will be estimating it for you. So you will be exactly seeing what does it cost you. So there are no hidden costs here involved. And now we will come to the conclusions that the last 4 basically slides. So from my experience, the most operational issues have been correctly recognized by DevOps Guru. That's an amazing job. It takes at least 7 minutes, yeah, to see the insights. I personally find it okay because they want to avoid false alarms. And especially if I have on-call duty, I have anyway reaction time of 1 hour. Yeah, so I don't need to jump out of the bed, and because especially with the German law, it's not possible. Yeah, otherwise I need to be paid by hour rate if I need to jump immediately, and this is too expensive for the companies. So in Germany, it's okay. I have anyway 1 hour reaction time. So if I receive the call 7 minutes later, that's acceptable. Might not be acceptable for you. Yeah, so correctly, no insights have been generated. I tested only 3 Lambda requests to throttled, and then everything's okay. So very temporary errors like very short throttling of DynamoDB API gateway, no alarm, and I think it's okay. Yeah, I don't want just to be woken up because of 2 or 3 requests not working correctly. Duration anomalies, yeah, so it's told you it took time, and it's latency sensitive. Yeah, so this latency is sometimes, it takes time, and they recognize currently only big latency, might be changed in the future. So recommendations could be more precise, but these are all limitations of CloudWatch. CloudWatch cannot give you precise HTTP codes, because if they will do that, then the cost of CloudWatch will explode. So they kind of merged everything together. There are things that also the same CloudWatch cannot tell you that, or is the throttling of the Lambda function, individual Lambda function on some account level metrics, concurrency metric was violated. So, but these are, I think, CloudWatch limitations. Yeah, and we saw with SNS and other stuff, there are some smaller use cases that DevOps Guru wasn't able to produce an insight. DevOps Guru Proactive Insight that I showed you in the last 10 minutes, this configuration, they improved a lot. They are coming now much quicker as I tested 1 year ago. So this is currently good. So this is kind of my wish list for serverless applications, what AWS should do. For example, they don't support Event Bridge and all its services within Event Bridge, like pipes currently. Yeah, and Event Bridge has also its limitations, and they can also something go wrong with the consumers, and then something remains in the Event Bridge. So the same stuff currently not supported. They don't support AppSync. I don't use it, but others use, and there are also some metrics that are important that can be reached. And even if AppSync is a kind of a wrapper around others, will be nice, it will be supported. And yes, raw serverless over data API, that should be fixed in my opinion, but should be fixed in CloudWatch, and then we'll probably see that supported. Yeah, and other stuff, it's very sensible area. I need a better support for tracing, and I'm personally not using X-Ray. We are using one of the third parties. But of course, I don't know how willing is AWS to collaborate with third parties, because we are basically, I would like to have DevOps Guru metrics on the third-party provider where I'm analyzing the stuff, but maybe it's too much hope. So this is basically it. I just made it in 1 hour, and I hope it was somewhere interesting for you just to see this, and I will now be happy to take the questions. I now see there have been a lot of, so I will stop my presentation. And Oleksii, how we basically approached it? Should we read them, and I will try to answer?
Thank you, Vadym, for the great presentation. We have several questions. Do you see this tab of Q&A?
Yeah, I see that. Okay, there are people saying from there where are, so
so you can just click answer live and tell something about it.
Is DevOps Guru app or service? It's a service like Lambda. You simply go where the services are and simply type DevOps Guru. So it's not an app, it's normal service. Yeah, and somebody posted the link, so and answered. So okay, what does it mean, DynamoDB throttling? So basically, if you're using DynamoDB with read and write capacity units, this is how it's in the default variant. Yeah, and that means that you simply, the database is not possible if you are just sending more traffic, more requests. It's not per second. You need to look how big the message is. There's, I think, 4 kilobytes for read and so on. So if you just configure 10 read capacity units and you exceed that, then DynamoDB will not be able to answer that. It will be throttling your request. It can be temporary. Yeah. It means you hit the predefined. Okay, people are answering that also. Okay.
In the chat we actually
you communicated a lot.
Answered. We have questions and in Q&A tab in Zoom. Do you see them? It's a special tab for questions.
Currently not. I just looked into the normal chat. Maybe you can share the screen. I can't find it.
I can. Okay, let me just copy paste them to the chat and you just see the latest.
I see F&A. This is Q&A. F&A. Does DevOps Guru allow to set top and bottom thresholds? Is that this? Okay, yes. Now I found this. No use. No, you cannot configure anything. That's exactly the stuff they decided for. Basically, you check it that you use it, and you cannot do anything more. Yeah, it has its advantages, because if you try to configure something, then you will be moving more towards what you are doing in your alarms. So they don't offer anything in between. Either you rely on AWS service, or you are doing it by yourself, or you combine. You can take the resources that are analyzed and provide the metrics on top by yourself. Of course, consider the costs and the maintenance, but no. Did you check for event breach events? That's what I mentioned. It doesn't support event breach. I tested it several months ago, producing incidents. There were no insights with event breach, unfortunately. Can you specify the resources you want to be monitored by DevOps Guru? As I told you, you can specify the CloudFormation stack, which basically corresponds to your application, or by tagging. These are two possibilities. Yeah, so you simply tag all the resources that support tags. As far as I know, not every AWS resource supports tags, but if it supports, like simply say analyzed by DevOps Guru and the value true, and then you can specify this in the DevOps Guru service, and only those will be analyzed. There is another one. This one is out of scope of this webinar. Is there a good business case for Aurora Serverless? The price tag is quite big. I agree with you. Yeah, the use case is basically if you are already using Aurora and have a huge spikes up and down, and you simply don't want to scale your compute manually, then you can define the scale rules. Yeah, the good thing, Aurora Serverless works within your Aurora cluster itself. So you can, with Aurora, specify your base capacity and say, if I reach that base capacity, then Aurora Serverless on top should kick in, and then kind of scale up from that point until that point, and then down. But yeah, the price tag is there, but I mean, manually scaling the database sometimes also means a bit of disruption, because there will be DNS switch to another stuff. But with Aurora, it's about milliseconds, so it's really not an issue. We're using also RDS, and this kind of manual auto scaling to the bigger instance always means that the connection will be released because of DNS switch, and that's sometimes ugly if you need to do it under the pressure, because you are fearing some alarm. It's out of scope here, but that's my opinion. So in the end, you will need to decide where you don't want to scale more, and simply take the incident. That's always the case. You can just scale and definitely pay a lot of money if there is a value on the other side. It's good, but sometimes you need to check if maybe this is kind of DDoS attack, and then maybe mitigate it on the other stuff, and then simply shut down the service in between. Okay, serverless of the cluster is cool. Yeah, so once again, I talked about this Aurora and serverless yesterday in this office hours. You can find it already on YouTube, or ask me, I will provide you the link, but I already saw that it's there. Which AWS services do you suggest using with DevOps Guru, and which don't? Basically, I told you I have only experience with serverless services that I presented you, that basically we saw maybe nearly everything from the serverless services, and basically I can recommend. I cannot tell anything else about the C2 containerized services and all that stuff. I simply didn't use it. But with AWS services, I have kind of a feeling that DevOps Guru is doing kind of the great job here. Yeah, and my personal opinion is, especially with serverless services, I think I mentioned this in the beginning, AWS has a huge experience of running DynamoDB, API Gateway, Lambda, Kinesis, all the services that are cloud native across all the regions. So they perfectly know and can guess the misbehavior. Yeah? If they provide managed service around something like RDS, that they can basically figure out only certain stuff, but they cannot look at, how exactly the managed Postgres is working. Yeah, but for DynamoDB it's different. They know it. They own the code. They totally know all the patterns, and they can train the models that quickly recognize the incident, or even in advance if they see maybe it's just the incident is approaching. I see Andrei would like maybe to speak because I don't see the message.
Sorry. Thank you for the great presentation. It was very nice to hear about this service. I have a question, actually. How you like register this as all? It's like to work with. You need to you can register a whole application, or you need to register service by service. What you would like to be monitoring? It just maybe I missed it. You explained it before. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I explained it. Yeah, you select CloudFormation stack, which corresponds to your application. So basically, if you deploy something via CloudFormation, you can go into the CloudFormation stack and you see the names. For example, this is product application that I deployed, and I simply can select the whole application. Yeah, and if you have 15 applications in your account, in the same account, you can select only those that you would like to monitor. Yeah, and others you simply don't select. Yeah, or you select all resources. The most expensive option, there will be everything will be analyzed, what DevOps Guru is capable of analyzing.
Okay, thank you.
So that was maybe one of the first slides that I presented. So you basically select the CloudFormation stack or tagging. Yeah, the tagging is another option.
Yeah, I also have a question. I heard you said about updating the service that it became much faster for the last year. But according to your observation, how often AWS introduce some new functions for DevOps Guru? Is it just once per year on reInvent, or maybe more often?
To be honest, I haven't heard since 1 year nothing new. So basically they need to improve just the analysis beyond the scenes. And I also provide since 2 years the workshops about that, and I retest, and I saw that the quality of metrics. So they bring only the relevant metrics, they group them, this relevant events stuff was added, and what they introduced, basically they introduced DevOps Guru for the database for RDS and Aurora several years ago as a separate service, just to analyze basically your SQL queries and CPU. But then last year they simply merged it to normal DevOps Guru offering. So you don't need to extra go to the DevOps Guru on RDS page and do something. They merged it, but once again they say you need to activate performance insights, otherwise it's kind of half working. But I also checked reInvent talks, and for the last year, so this for December, I haven't found anything new there. Yeah, so but the goal is just to improve the existing stuff. It's fine, of course. I have my wish list with EventBridge. It's for me one of the services I'm heavily using, or we are heavily using at my company. This is for me crucial. Yeah, to have that working, because we need then to think of our own alarms.
Maybe you know, is there any roadmap for this service? I mean, publicly available.
Publicly available is nothing. I see now. Yeah, the jokes about code commit, and yeah, it's of course another story. I also checked if the DevOps Guru will not be there, because otherwise it doesn't make sense to talk about it. But no, they don't have currently any plans to discontinue it. And why they are doing this code commit is for me also not understandable.
Yeah, as I
code
see,
commit and Cloud9, it's for me completely not understandable decisions. I run all my workshops on Cloud9, but as I am a user of Cloud9, I am not concerned. But they are simply disable it for new users, also for new accounts. But yeah, that's another story. I think that AWS did something that causes a lot of uncertainty. especially for services that are not very well known. And DevOps Guru is for sure not very well known on service, and the people hesitate using it. And I can understand, yeah, because you will start to rely, you will drop your own alarms, and then they might decide something else. So I also expect from AWS some kind of more transparency in that stuff, because we have now reached a new dimension. AWS was never known to discontinue services, which I personally can understand. It's a business decision. Yeah, you have that outside also that SaaS products will be discontinued, but at least it should be communicated transparently X months in advance, and not simply, yeah, from today on, or some people received emails. That's also not the style that forces trust, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, but as I see, AWS invests quite a lot of resources into machine learning area, and DevOps Guru is related to machine learning, so I hope it will be active long time.
Yeah, somebody else says there is a GitHub. Why you use code commit? So code commit, in my opinion, is not a very good service, and the PR request that is nightmare. There is no functionality, but it was very easy configurable with some other services like Code Catalyst and all that stuff. I could very easy configure it. So the MVP or the value of that service was simply it worked the best with many AWS services, and they allowed that. Yeah, the code commit came first with many services like code build, and of course, and GitHub. Yeah, we can start the discussion. Will you trust the code that will be owned by Microsoft and all that stuff? The same discussions with AWS. It's understandable, but now I see many services of AWS now allow GitHub as a managed Git. Yeah, now they are starting to implement that. Yeah, so they wanted, of course, to lock people more towards code commit, just that we spend our money on AWS, but now as they disabling that, they need to provide other ways, and now we will see GitHub, Bitbucket stuff, and all that stuff will come for sure. Yeah, so but we used code commit, for example. Yeah, we have Bitbucket, but we replicated to the code commit stuff just to easy access other stuff on AWS. Of course, it involves double costs in that situation, but it was sometimes easy pattern.
Yeah, so
Okay.
seems we don't have questions. So thank you everybody for attending us today. Yeah, and for all people who for all people who were with us today, I will send you a feedback form. Please fill it because it is pretty important to us to know your opinion, and yeah, just to do next meetups better and better.
So also thanks for the invite. As I finished the presentation, there have been still 35 people. Not self-explanatory, just kind of yeah, summer evening, other things to do. So thank you very much that you stayed. I hope you took something with you, so you can think, is it something for your use case or not? So maybe I can join someday with another talk. Just let's see how it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.